guys, welcome to another weekly reading wrap-up. I read quite a few books. I mean, 2 of these are short story collections. One of them is like a super short book. But I did a decent amount of reading. This doesn't even include the books I'm currently reading. I decided I will not share about those books generally until I'm done with them. So, where do I even start? First, we'll start with the one I did not finish, I guess. So I started the Apothecary Diaries. This is volume 1. I really liked the illustrations, was really excited about it, but I didn't get very far. So it starts out, it had such an interesting premise. Our main character, who I don't even know if we even ever got her name. We probably did. I don't remember it. She is pretty much kidnapped out of the forest. She is an apothecary, and apothecary, is that what the person is called? Is that what the building is called? Whatever. She is of that world, doing that kind of thing. Whatever. She ends up being kidnapped and being sold to like the king's inner court, which is pretty much where all his ladies live, and she is a maid there. And she intentionally doesn't let people know that she can read and like how smart she is, because she doesn't want to move up in the world, because then she'll get paid more, and if she gets paid more, the people that kidnapped her and sold her get paid more. Really interesting concept. But there is one character in here that just ruined it for me. Yeah, so unfortunately she gets caught, and they know that she knows how to read, and then they kind of move her up in the world anyway and kind of figure out how to get around the kidnappers. That was all really cool. But there was one character that, I don't know, it just kept talking about how he was maybe trying to seduce her, but then he's also talking about other people trying to seduce him, and I didn't really like the conversation where this was going. So I quit this one. Then I think we will move on to the short stories. That's what I've been doing the last few, is just sharing my short stories, since it's the short story readathon this month. And my short story bingo is filling up. I do officially have a bingo. I think working towards a blackout. It's not the end of the world if I don't get it. And I'm only blocking off 1 square per story. If I were to like fill in all the squares that each story has fulfilled, I could have filled in a lot more. So the first one actually is nonfiction, and I think this is the one that I used for essay. It is The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness by Timothy Keller. The sun and the clouds, always, you guys, it gets like so dark and then so bright. This one was recommended to me by one of my pastor's wives. She often quotes it, this one line in here, and this kind of sums up the entire book. It says, because the essence of gospel humility is not thinking more of myself or thinking less of myself. It is thinking of myself less. So there were some interesting points brought up in here about how like 100 years ago, when people were having issues, it was always like they had too much self-esteem, too much pride. If you were a thief, a murderer, that was always like partially what was blamed. And now everything is blamed on not enough self-esteem, and how that like changes over the years. Yeah, so it was a good little read, and I agree with it. I just like, how does one exactly go about doing this? Not exactly sure. But I gave this one, I gave this one 4.5 stars. Then let's do Stars Above. So this was also the book that I read for the Buzzwordathon prompt for the month. It was directions, I think. So I took above as a direction. And I did 2 short stories this week. The first one was After Sunshine Passes By, and that was my prompt. I used the nature word prompt, and that one deals with Cress as a 9-year-old and how she got to where she is in the book Cress. So the Lunar Chronicles is a 4-book series, and some of these stories take place at different points throughout the series. So some of them are like before the first book, some of them are after the second book, some of them are after the third book, etc. So that one takes place before Cress, so before book 3. And I enjoyed that one. I gave it 4 stars. And then, that was the only one. And then I think I read The Queen's Army. Yes, The Queen's Army as well. So that one takes place before Scarlet. So this was It's an earlier one. And that one we follow Alpha Kelsey as a teen boy. I think right when he turns 12, he gets chosen for the Queen's Army. And yeah, so those are both good. I think I give that one 3.5 stars. I ended up giving this whole book, I think, 3 or 4 stars on Goodreads. It's like a 3.5 star. It adds a little bit to the books. It's not necessary. It's kind of interesting, but not one I would like purchase unless it was really cheap. And then my other short stories, I read 2 stories out of The Lottery. So I just shared this in my last book haul. I got this from Thrift Books. I read The Villagers. This was a new to me short story. I gave it 4 stars. It's about a woman who, I don't know, Shirley Jackson's stories are always very interesting. I think she's really good at the short story, even when I'm like, that's kind of weird. It's about a woman who is going to go potentially buy some furniture from these people are moving. So she goes to their house and looks at this furniture. When she gets there, there's a note that says, "The lady's out. She'll be back at this time, like 20 minutes from now. Just like go ahead and look at the furniture. Let me know what you think when I get back." And then as this girl is looking through the furniture and realizing she doesn't want to keep any of it, someone else comes in to look at the furniture, same idea. And she pretends she's the lady of the house. And yeah, it's a short story, so I don't want to say too much, but I didn't really get the point of it, but that's okay. And then I read, once again, reread The Lottery. Every time I've gotten this collection out of the library, and when I now purchased it, I always reread The Lottery. And I think that is the best short story that has ever been written. I don't want to give too many spoilers if you haven't read The Lottery, because I think the ending is very powerful. And so if you know the ending and you're like, that's your favorite short story, you might think I'm a little creepy, but I just mean like she packs so much into this short story. I feel like you go into it expecting one thing and it ends up being this other thing. And the way she approaches like tradition and following the crowd, and I think it is amazing. That has always been a 5-star short story for me. It's one of the very few things I actually remember from my schooling, from high school, was that short story. So I reread it fairly often and always am fascinated by it, always am amazed. Definitely 5 stars. Okay, then I have 3 full-length novels that I finished. So one of them I talked about a little bit last week because I was sharing my current reads then, and I think that's too much. I'm just gonna share the ones I finish in the future. And that is Secrets of a Charmed Life by Susan Meisner. So I did say a little bit in my last video, but it's set in Oxford, England is where we start, and this woman is trying to do this research project for university for this essay I think that she has to write or something. And she goes to interview this old lady who was in World War II, and she says, "So, Isabel, I believe is her name, tell me your story." And she says, "Well, first of all, my name's not Isabel and I'm not 93 years old." And for the most part, we are back in history in the 1940s following Isabel and her story. And this is my second Susan Meisner book, and I feel like she is such a powerful writer. I ended up giving this 4 stars. It felt like it was missing a few things for me, but I did really enjoy it. I'm pretty sure I gave it 4 stars, maybe 4.5. So during the 1940s, Isabel, I mean, you find out really soon what her real name is, but she ends up going and living with a woman in the country. Her and her sister, they get sent to the country when London is being bombed, and there is like some really nice heart-to-hearts. I feel like they got a really good home, and this woman talks about how she's always going to be loved no matter what, and I really appreciated that. She's the home that she goes to is called Thistle House, and the woman says to her, "Thistle House is for people who love and care for one another. We respect each other in this house. We carry one another's burdens. We weep for one another, and we laugh with one another. We hold one another by the hand when the lights go out and when the way seems hopeless. We work together, and we share the table together, and we pray together, no matter how old we are or what we are called." So yeah, I really liked that. There was lots of different things that I underlined. Here's a good quote. "Fear does not start to fade until you take the step that you think you can't." So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Looking forward to more Susan Meisner in the future. Then I read The Length of a String. This is a there's like a definite historical fiction theme going on here. Middle grade, I mean, it's like historical fiction, but it's mostly set present day, and our main character finds a journal from her grandmother from World War II. Her grandmother, Anna, was sent over from Luxembourg to the United States, and her grandmother keeps this journal, who she addresses to Belle, which is her twin, and her twin wasn't able to come. Anna came over by herself, and we follow as our main character's name is Imani, I think is how you say it, and she is reading this journal with a friend of hers, mostly sometimes by herself, sometimes with a friend, and it's interesting to see some things uncovered. At the same time, Imani is Jewish, she's adopted, and she's getting ready for her bat mitzvah, and so she's trying. It's interesting to read some of this like Jewish culture, which I don't really know anything about the Jewish culture, and she's trying to get the courage to ask her parents about her birth family and where she's from, and I really enjoyed it. This is a 5-star book for me. The mother, her mother drove me nuts because anytime she would bring up adoption or looking for her birth family, her mother would just shut down. She would like either start crying, she would like run out and leave the room and like go have a bath so no one could talk to her. And as someone that has a child that's adopted, like they don't talk about adoption in their home, and that drove me nuts. Like for us, adoption is a very big conversation in our home all the time, and so often we have to repeat things because we tell the story to like my son once when he's young, whatever, at a certain age, but then he forgets certain details and you have to like retell the story, and I think that's important. And so the mother did bother me, but it's okay. It ended up building the story. There's also, I really liked the writing in here right off the bat. Okay, so there's this description. Imani is describing her parents like right on one of the first pages here. She says, "Nobody in my own family even looks like me. My mom is tall and sturdy, like she's built to survive a Nordic winter. My dad is also tall, but angular and spindly, like he'd have to spend that Nordic winter huddled close to the fireplace." And then in brackets, "probably stocked with wood my mom had chopped." Like what? I love that. I feel like I can really see them when you have that description. And then, so Imani's great grandma dies right at the beginning of the book, and that's how she comes across the diary. And at the funeral, 2 of her great grandmother's friends are talking, and the one old lady is like, "What's with all this sadness?" An old lady whispered to me near the tray of bakery cookies. Anna was 85. I'm 82, and every day I don't see my name on the obituary page, I consider it a success. Yeah, so I liked the writing. I really loved following the story, learning about Luxembourg. If I remember correctly, like the population is only like 500,000 people, and during this time there was like 950 Jews only, and so thinking about that during World War II, like you could know like almost all the Jews in your whole country if you were like a Jew in that world. Very fascinating. I would highly recommend this. This is going to be going on my daughter's to read list next year. I'm going to make sure she reads that. And then the last historical fiction, and they're all World War II, which is funny because I'm looking for more historical fiction books, especially not World War II, because it can get a little bit tedious. I love that this like involved Luxembourg, because that's a country that I've never read anything about in general, never mind World War II. And then so the last one here is Until Leaves Fall in Paris by Sarah Sundin, and this one is Paris 1940/41, and it's not actually dual timeline, which I'm realizing is quite rare, but it has dual perspectives. So we follow our main character, Lucy, who is an American by birth, but she's been in Paris since she was 9, and she trained as a ballerina, she's done ballet, and at the beginning of the book, her Jewish friends, who she's been staying with since she was 9, are leaving Paris, and they end up selling their bookshop to her, so she stops being a ballerina and decides to run this bookshop. And I really liked the glimpses inside the bookshop and like the daily runnings, and how she kind of got to help with some war efforts as a bookseller. I wish they would have talked a little bit more about her past. I feel like her childhood and stuff would have been really interesting to read more about. And then our other main character is a man named Paul. His wife had died like the year previous or whatever, somewhere around there, and he owns an automobile company which he would like to leave to go back to the States with his 4-year-old daughter, but if he does, the Germans will take over his factory, and he gets approached by a British man, I believe, army guy that wants him to stay in Paris, stay running his factory so that he can pretty much, you know, be a spy and report on what the Germans are telling him. And so he is seen as a collaborator. All his friends are no longer his friends because they think he's working with the enemy, and then he's selling trucks to them that they are going to turn into like army trucks. And he's seen as this collaborator, which means he has no friends, and they have no idea that he's actually doing good. And as someone that's really interested in espionage, I really enjoyed that part of the book. The romance part I felt like was a little bit predictable and like a little over the top. I wish it would have been toned down a bit. That's just often a issue of mine in these kind of books. But I did end up giving it 4 stars. One of my favorite quotes in here was Paul's father's words to him: "Nothing of any worth lies on the easy path." And then Paul is thinking here, he says, why did he have a funny feeling the Lord would guide him to the difficult path? He usually did. And that has often been my experience, so I like to read about that in books. So yeah, I recently got another Sarah Sundin book. I think it's here, When Twilight Breaks. So I want to read that one soon as well. Yeah, really enjoyed that one. So overall, a really good reading week. Got a lot of reading in. It was my birthday on the weekend, so I got some extra reading in where I felt like I didn't have to feel guilty for reading because it was my birthday. So let me know what you've been reading lately. Any good recommendations? I'm really looking for good historical fiction recommendations, especially if they have like a bit of a mystery aspect as well, and especially if they don't take place during World War II. So thanks for watching, guys.